Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show, ladies and gentlemen, and I am really thrilled to say that we are joined here by Pat Buchanan, the one and only former presidential candidate, of course, best-selling author, syndicated columnist, and worked in the Reagan administration, the whole thing. Hello, Pat. How are you? Nixon administration.
Fine, Steve.
Good to talk to you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and your family.
Right. Thank you very much, and the same to you and yours. And don't forget, I did work for Gerald Ford for 4 months.
There you go. Okay. You know, I can't keep track of everything. My mind is only so big, and it's not very.
I was until they found out where I was.
Well, let's look at a piece that you wrote. I guess I saw it yesterday, and no, today's Thursday. Yeah. Yesterday was Thursday. In my mind, it's Tuesday. I'm all messed up. But talking about what we could expect in 2014 with regard to Washington. I think you were on with Greta and on the Fox News channel the other day, and you were talking about that prospect. So what do you see lying ahead? I mean, people say this is a do-nothing Congress, whatever. I think the less they do sometimes and most times the better. But I don't think the Republicans have to do much heading into the 2014 elections. Do you?
Well, no, with regard to Obamacare, they don't have to do anything, and I think that is going to be a winner for Republicans because it's been such a disaster for America, and I think it's going to continue to be so. But I was on Greta last night talking with Dana Perino, and Republicans should be aware there are some traps being laid for them in the immediate future. They're going to be asked to vote on that unemployment extensions. They're going to be asked to vote on an immigration bill, which my guess is will be a, quote, moderate bill where they give the Dreamers a path to citizenship and maybe give a sort of quasi-amnesty to everyone here and just says, we're not going to send you back. I think they're going to be made to vote on a minimum wage, which is very popular now, apparently, according to the national polls. And Obama will move that on the basis of his battle against economic inequality. So I don't think the Republicans can sit on their laurels and simply, as I said, ride Secretariat in the Derby here, right back into power in November. I think they better be pretty aware that things are coming down the pike.
And Pat, I don't think that they're well equipped to handle any of it. I mean, I said when they, capitulated on this budget deal and Ryan came to the agreement, and when I saw that unemployment was left out, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. I just think it was so obvious it struck you in the face. If unemployment was left out, I said that they're going to be made the villains by the media as people who don't care about the unemployed, because of course Harry Reid is going to bring this up in the Senate. Of course the president's going to push this. You're right about the minimum wage. Capitulation so as not to rock the boat and to be loved by the media or not criticized by the media will never be achieved by the Republicans, because no matter what they do, if they pass a moderate immigration bill, 2 days later, Schumer, Obama, and the media will say these evil Republicans left this out of the bill. So you poor immigrants, you poor Hispanics, you poor Mexicans can't see your relative here or there because those evil Republicans, they will never, ever be the good guys.
Well, they're not going to satisfy them because what the Democrats want to move, as you're exactly right, they want to move much further than the Republicans want to go, and so they put out their maximum proposal. Then they come back and settle for a little less, and the Republicans capitulate, and then they say exactly what you said. Why did you leave these tens of millions or these millions of other poor Hispanic immigrants and others, leave them out in the cold, leave them, in the dark and in the shadows and not bring them out into the open? And I think they'll be on the Republicans' case. And even the Republicans who capitulate, they will say, well, thanks, but you didn't go far enough.
Yeah.
And then you got coming down the road, I think they're walking into the same trap, if you will, the same march of the 600 into the valley of death with this the debt ceiling coming up. Now, the Republicans, I think, are going to say we demand X, Y, and Z, but before they go into that and strap on their guns, they've got to be prepared to go all the way, and I don't think they are.
No, they are not. And Pat, we haven't talked since the whole budget debacle, and look at the aftermath, Pat. I mean, it drove me nuts. I'm sure it drove you nuts. You're much more schooled in this than I am. But instead of Boehner coming out after it was over and saying we lost, we tried, and McConnell saying, oh, we'll never do this again, why didn't they say, yeah, we gave in, yes, we capitulated, yes, we waved the white flag, but we did it to save this country from a president who would not negotiate it was unprecedented, and he was willing to let the debt ceiling come and go over something as minuscule as a delay of the medical device tax. So, yeah, we gave in, but we gave in to save America. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to spin. They just don't know how to communicate.
Well, I think they didn't know how to communicate, those two, because they didn't want the fight. Down deep, those two didn't want to fight. And I think that before you march into one of these battles, you got to be prepared for the fact that, look, we may get bloodied so badly, we're going to have to step back across the Potomac River like Robert E. Lee did after Gettysburg, friends. But are we prepared to go into this? Are we ready for what's going to happen? Have we war-gamed what's going to happen? Do we have a communication strategy if we have to pull back to this position or advance to that one? I don't think they do. And that's why I say they better be aware that, I mean, one thing, Steve, that what they did is, I think they capitulated on the budget battle. One reason people said we shouldn't fight it is we're going to win so big on the Obamacare battle.
Yeah.
And they're going to get that coming along. People are going to say, give Obama his minimum wage. Give him this. Give him that. Because we're going to win with Obamacare.
Yeah, well, you know, you've called Obamacare, a quote from one of your previous pieces, you called it a bait and switch by the first hustler, and I think that's brilliant. I couldn't agree with you more, and the question has to be asked. You know, they say they will get something out of this debt ceiling fight, and Obama said at the press conference to the woman who questioned him, are you going to negotiate? He chuckled and said, you know the answer to that. Why should he negotiate? When he didn't negotiate the first two times on the budget and the debt ceiling, he knows the Republicans don't have the guts to go through it at this time. He's not going to give an inch. The Republicans had better come up with a face-saving strategy to say, how much do you want, Mr. President? We'll sign it, because that's what they're going to do.
I think you're exactly right. But they better be aware. I mean, how can they not be aware of what he's going to do? I think he's going to hold his ground, and there's a good reason for it. I mean, to be honest, they blame the Tea Party for shutting down the government, but those Republicans did not vote to shut down the government. They voted to fund the entire government in the first vote, except for Obamacare. Then they voted to fund Obamacare, too, in that second vote, except just for 1 year, you know, get rid of the individual mandate.
Right.
And so, but they blamed them, and Obama knows that if the Republicans say, you know, please give us something for voting for this debt extension, you know, that the media will back Obama up, and he will say these Republicans are holding hostage the financial and credit rating of the United States, and this is they blackmail and all the rest of it. And they know, and then eventually they will back out.
Well, why shouldn't Obama say it? Because Boehner said it. And day number 2 of scolding the conservative groups, he also said of the Tea Party, they led us to shut down the government. He blamed them for shutting the government down. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, Pat.
Well, look, one thing you could be said about these fellows, they do not think it through. I mean, General Custer had a battle plan for weeks compared to these fellows.
We're talking to Pat Buchanan here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Oh, boy. All right, so you great piece at Town Hall. I'm sure it was other places, too. By their heroes shall you know them. And you write about how President Obama, in his eulogy to Nelson Mandela, talked about the company of 3 other heroes, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Abraham Lincoln. And you go through what they had in common, and you say that they all attest to the fact that Obama's heroes believe that the great moral struggle of the age is the struggle for racial equality, and that reflects on Obama. And that is, I think that's the chip. I think that's what drives him.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. When he picked those 4 out, and I said to myself, what do they have in common? And he mentions them, and of course, Lincoln had the massive war. Gandhi was basically civil disobedience, as was Martin Luther King. And Mandela was a revolutionary, but all of them, their main objective in their life, and 3 of them were assassinated, was the overthrow of the rule of peoples of color, brown and black, by white Western colonialism and by white masters in the South and by white folks, and the rise of racial equality, and in the case of obviously of India and South Africa, of majority rule, which meant black and brown rule. Now, this is the thing, clearly, that is most deeply on Obama's mind by all of his heroes, and I contrasted that with Churchill and some of his statements, which today anybody who made them would be out of a political career because he believed there were superior civilizations, superior nations, superior races.
Well, let me quote what you quoted in your piece.
Sure.
In 1937, Churchill, when asked what he thought of ending Western white rule of peoples of color, he said, "I do not admit that a great wrong has been done to the Red Indians of America or the black people of Australia by the fact that a stronger race, a higher grade race, has come in and taken its place." And then you quote Churchill, World War II, "I have not become the King's first minister in order to preside over the liquidation of the British Empire." I mean, like, you're right. Either one of these today, especially the first one, would have, you know, ended the career by today's standards of those two great men.
Yeah, you know, and I didn't get into a larger point here. The question this raises is there a, if you will, an original sin in the Western colonialism, the British, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish moving out and colonizing North America and Canada and Mexico and Latin America and imposing the rule of Western civilization, which was clearly the most advanced civilization on Earth then, which eventually colonized most of the world, but it was the rule of white Western peoples over peoples of color, brown and black and Asian. And the question is, if to Obama, this is the great evil against which his heroes waged war in their own way. And it really raises a real question for our civilization that I wonder what people are taught in school. Now, when I grew up, long before you, but Columbus was a great figure. We celebrated Columbus's birthday, was a big figure. Now he's a villainous character in America.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, you know, my father, of course, his grandfather, one of them was killed at Vicksburg, and one of them wound up in a Union prison in Camp Douglas, Illinois. But they all thought of Lee and Jackson as two of the greatest Americans who had ever lived.
Yeah.
And now their statues are being taken down, and Lord help Nathan Bedford Forrest.
Yeah,
Forest Park.
Well, the founding fathers are slave owners, and
exactly. So
yeah.
You know, the whole idea is, again, if what Obama's beliefs are really the moral standard, then you have a very difficult time defending Western history all the way from the time of Jamestown all the way up until the Civil War, and even then up until the 1960s.
Absolutely.
So it's an enormous issue, and what I tried to lead in with it is Obama's world is the world today, but it is being challenged clearly by rising ethno-nationalism. The Chinese clearly believe they are superior people the way they're crushing the Uyghurs and the Tibetans and the others, and they have a right to rule. And the Russians.
And
are
Putin, I was going to say, you talk about Putin a lot as well. The fact that you put it, he wants.
Yeah. Is trying to reestablish. I mean, it may be utopian, reestablish after 70 years of that barbaric communism grouting out the Christianity of the Russian people, the Orthodox Christian. He's trying to reestablish that as the governing philosophy and faith and ideology, if you will, of the Russian people. But it shows, and he obviously believes it's superior. I mean, because that's what he wants.
Right.
The Muslim folks, I mean, they're doing horrible things to the Christians, but why are they doing them? They believe that theirs is the only true faith, and Christianity is not only a heresy, but it's going to lead their children to hell, and so they're going after it. So that's part of a new world that's coming that is going to be very, very rough.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Hey, Pat, I look forward to talking to you again real soon, sir. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, my friend. You take it easy.
Take care. Pat Buchanan, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Russia, Putin, and the Olympics. Don't miss it. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.